Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Great. Hi. Thanks for letting me in.
Absolutely. Welcome, Brent. Brent, how we doing, brother?
Doing awesome. Good to see everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy Monday. Should have a decent turnout today, which is cool. Lindsay, welcome. It's like Pierce is coming in. And if you're wondering, we also are live streaming on Facebook, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, YouTube channel, and Expert CRE Secrets YouTube channel. And Brent, well, this is our it's our fourth one right here. Is this our fourth one?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So this is I guess episode, if you will, or meetup number 4. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. People probably start trickling in here. Comes Sierra. Welcome everybody to another commercial real estate tactical broker training. My name is Brett Swarts, and we believe that most brokers and anyone who's really in sales, sometimes they struggle with role playing and underwriting and proposals, and just sharpening their skills of stuff they already know, or just learning new concepts to help them grow their business and grow their skill set. I believe the more we can practice, study and practice, anything that has to do with underwriting, proposals, cold calling, what's called tactical empathy, sales, communication, the more we're going to be able to help more clients and convey a message that helps people to take action. I am joined by some amazing eXp Mastery family team members. First one being Brent Silverbauer. He's a multifamily and residential expert in Chico, California. Brent, how are we doing, brother?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. And so, Brent, we've covered a few things these last few weeks. So part of what I'm going to do is do a quick review, right? Quick reminder. And then we're going to dive into kind of the topic of the week. By the way, the topic of the week is proposals. And it's because of Brent Silverbauer asking and requesting that, which is great. We also are joined by Sierra Saliendia. I'm still pronouncing her last name correctly. She is also part of the eXp Mastery team members. She is with Park Place Advisors, part of eXp Commercial. Sierra, how are we doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Brett. I'm always happy to be here.
Absolutely. And so she has mobile home parks, campgrounds, RV parks, all of those things. We also have Pierce York. He's part of the luxury and commercial team out of Newport Beach. And so Pierce, how are we doing, brother?
Doing great, man. How are you guys?
Good. He's also becoming a Deferred Sales Trust expert, which is great for exit planning. So let's dive right in. So Brent, we talked about week 1, essentially, and Sierra, we talked about the value and the purpose of the cold call, right? So Brent, what's the purpose of a cold call?
To get an in-person meeting if possible.
Sierra, why is that so important to get an in-person meeting versus just having the meeting over the phone?
Yeah, great point, Brett. To bring in any other decision makers there may be and identify problems and see if a proposal might be able to solve one of their problems.
Yeah, but particularly, why is it important to make sure when you're on the phone that you're not trying to have too much of a meeting right away is what I'm saying. So the purpose of a cold call is to get the meeting. Why is that important not to have the meeting over the phone?
Yeah, for sure. Like we talked about, you'll pretty quickly get put in friend zone. They'll think that they have all their questions answered and there's not really any carrots left hanging for them to go after.
Very well said. Yeah. So the purpose of the cold call is to get the meeting. And then we move on to Brent, because we don't want to get in the friend zone, right? We don't want to have the meeting over the phone. You're only going to do business to the extent that you have a know, like, and trust. And people can only build so much of that on the phone. You really build that in person by building rapport and getting to know somebody. People aren't going to share their, real pain points or their real desires, because part of it, you're calling them on the limb, right? They might be working out, they're in the car, they're doing all this other stuff. But until you have a dedicated time to sit down with somebody to really get to know them and get to ask questions to open them up, it's going to be very difficult for them to do business with you, right? And understandably so. You wouldn't have just a meeting over the phone with a doctor. Now, you're having some Zoom calls maybe these days with some doctors, but it's a dedicated time. And maybe sometimes if you're out of state, that is the next best thing, to do an in-person Zoom meeting, but it's a specific time scheduled to talk about their challenges, their needs, to gauge their motivation. So going into the cold call, you should know that the purpose is to set the meeting, right? Not to have the meeting. So Brent, once we're in the meeting, we're in the meeting and we're face to face with somebody. Tell me about the ratio as far as building rapport versus talking business.
Probably 80% building rapport, know, like, and trust. You're just getting to know them, build a relationship. That's a really key thing.
What's the best way to do that, Brent? What kind of questions are you asking? How are you asking them? And what's kind of maybe some ways to encourage to have them talk even more?
Ask questions. A good one is, tell me a little bit about your story. How'd you get into investment real estate? That kind of a thing. That's a great one. And then using the playful curiosity tone of voice and having them expound on their responses.
Let's talk about that. So right now I've been a very direct, kind of really, intense voice, right? As I'm coaching and training here. But the playful voice, it may be something like this. Hey, Brent, tell me a little bit more about your story. What are you most passionate about with real estate? I'm curious, how'd you get started with this thing? How did this all go down? You see, if I change that tone a little bit, it's very inviting. It's probably more relaxing, probably not as intense, right? We have this short period of time, so I'm trying to get a lot in. But when I'm in the meeting, I'm trying to build rapport. Now, the person might be a driver personality, and he may be very quickly like, hey, I'll just get down to business, Brent. We don't need to talk about this. So you do need to pick up on this. Isn't just, you want to have emotional intelligence here. But as a part of that, Brent, I might say something that you want to maybe tease out. So how are you going to tease more of it out of me, Brent?
Take the last thing that you said and then put a question mark on it. So how am I going to tease you?
Yeah, tease out the information. So I might say something along the lines of, man, Brent, I just wanted to get passive real estate, passive wealth so that I didn't have to work so much. You might say, work so much?
You don't want to work so much?
Yeah. You might say work so much. And
Can you hear me? Is it breaking up?
I think you're good. Maybe I'm breaking up. Am I breaking up, Sierra?
No, you're good. You're clear.
Okay, I might be delayed on Brent's end. So I'll go to Sierra now. So Sierra, we're going to ask this upward inflecting kind of, mirror, if you will. And a mirror is essentially taking the last few words that someone said and asking that. And so if you could also mute whoever's in here, I think it might be somebody, I can hear the background a little bit. I don't know who that is, but could if you can mute yourself if you're not talking. So we're going to say that. So something along the lines of, investment real estate, passive wealth, having to work so much. You might say, what have you done? What'd you do for work? Right. You want to know what they've done, who they are, what they're about, right? Instead of getting right down the business, we want to try to build that rapport. And then we're going to go into three phrases that are also going to open up the conversation. Sierra, what are those maybe three phrases or three kind of statements?
Yeah. So you can say things like, it seems like, it sounds like, it feels like, and repeat back to them what you're already hearing.
Exactly. It's a way to do active listening. And this is just basic communication with people, right? It seems like, it feels like, it sounds like. It seems like, it feels like, it sounds like. So I might say something like, Sierra, it seems like you wanted to build some passive wealth so you didn't have to work so much and spend more time with your family.
That's exactly right.
And then that's when you want to hear, that's right. That's right. When they say that's right, basically they know that you hear what they're saying and that you're on the same wavelength, right? So basically it's getting into an emotional state with them on the same level, but you might know that, but if you're not communicating that it sounds like, it seems like, it feels like, they don't know that you're there. And as soon as you're there, this also goes for the pain points too, right? And you might say something along the lines of, so when you did sell in the past, what were the reasons you sold your properties in the past? You're going back to their past when they sold maybe 1031 exchange into the property. And now that might open up something there, right? And then you might say something along the lines of, it sounds like, it was a good time to harvest, your gains at that point. It feels like you like to, take advantage when properties make, values make sense. And you're going to hear what they say and how they respond to that. You might even test some of these things, right? And they might say, no, that really wasn't it. Okay. Tell me, what was it, right? And at this point, hopefully you're going to gather more and more information. Hopefully they're sharing and they're sharing. And hopefully there might be some pain points there, right? So you're trying to identify A, where they're at, and B, where they're going. And A is what kind of pain are they in, right? And what kind of desire are they looking to, right? Because at the end of the day, you're only adding value to the extent that you can solve my pain point or you can bring me to my desire, right? But if you're not doing that, you're basically In other words, wasting my time, right? You want to be there to solve those challenges or bring creative ideas or help them, again, if it's in a Rubik's Cube, bring them more into alignment for where they want to be. And where do you think some people want to be these days, Brent? What are some things you think people want to know, like, and feel? What do you think they want to think, know, like, and feel right now?
Well, they want to generally make more money and work less, feel secure. I mean, those are some basic things.
Excellent. What else, Sierra? What else do people want besides, make more money, work less, feel secure?
Yeah, probably people have questions about where the market's going, if they're ever going to get the price they thought they were going to get last year, what they're going to do if they do sell a property in this market. They want to know options.
So it seems like they want clarity on options.
Yep, that's right.
Clarity on where the market's going.
Yes.
Brent, it feels like, it seems like they feel like they want to know that they have certainty, clarity, options. Perhaps they don't want to feel like they're stuck. Right?
Yeah.
So these are all certain things that you could be picking up on, right? So as a professional, you want to provide, when there's chaos, right, and there's uncertainty, you want to provide creativity, right? Where there's chaos and uncertainty, you want to provide clarity, right? When there's chaos and uncertainty, you want to empower them that they actually can take some action, right? And so to the extent that you're providing creativity, clarity, right, and options to empower them, guess what? You're going to help them move from a state of inaction to action, right? So it seems like, it feels like, it sounds like. And now my purpose of this entire conversation is for what, Brent? What am I trying to do here? Actually, I'm going to call on Lindsay, see if Lindsay remembers. Lindsay, welcome.
Morning.
Morning. Do you remember, Lindsay, last week we talked about when you're in the proposal, what you're trying to do, or when you're in the first meeting, what you're trying to do? What's the purpose of the first meeting?
To get them to know, like, and trust you. I don't remember.
Number one for sure. But what's the second part of of that first meeting?
I don't remember.
Brent, what's the second part of that first meeting?
Find out what their problems are, possibly
Sure.
look for the third meeting to offer solutions.
Okay, so pause there. What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that? I'm just kidding. Well, we want to define their problems, then their pain points, and also their hopes, dreams, aspirations, so that we can propose something to them, an option for them that's going to be in alignment with those. You don't need to do that right there. That's the next meeting, but that's a very important part of that first in-person meeting, is to find out their pain points and find out what they want to do going forward.
Very well said. And so think of it like this: like you go to a first appointment with the doctor. Think of you're like a doctor, right? And the person is coming up and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Is the doctor going to do surgery right there, blood work right there, everything on that first meeting? No, it's just an initial intake. Hey, how do you feel? How long has it been going on for? What are your challenges? What are you trying to do with your health? How is your health? How's the health of your property? How's the health of your property management? How's the health of your rents? How's the health of your overall your interest rate and your loan? Is it an assumable loan? Right? It's like gathering facts, gathering information, right? And then what's the doctor going to do? Hey, you need to go get your blood work. You need to get an X-ray, right? And that X-ray or that MRI is going to determine what the next steps are, right? So the purpose of the first meeting is to determine whether or not a proposal is warranted for the second meeting. And so I might say something like this, Brent. There's a transition there where I'm about, let's say, 50% through the meeting. I might ask something to gauge their level of urgency, motivation, and also how much they're just tracking with me. And what's a question I might ask, Brent, to try to unlock that? What might I say? Can you remember that one?
I don't know.
On a scale.
Oh, yeah. On a scale from 1 to 10, how serious are you about, selling or buying or whatever they're trying to do?
Yep. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you, Sarah, about unlocking that passive wealth so you can spend more time with your family?
I mean, Brett, if everything I need is met, then pretty serious, 10 out of 10.
So here's an example. So Sierra and I were on a call on Friday. Sierra, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And about halfway through the meeting, I think I asked a question, right? Also, and there's a follow-up question to this we're going to touch on here in a minute, but essentially it was gauging to see how serious they were. And it quickly became certain that they were kind of just open. I wouldn't say they're not serious, but I wouldn't say they're serious. They were kind of neutral, right? There wasn't any real pain. There wasn't any real motivation to necessarily take action today. And that's okay. Not everyone's in the position to take action today. We want to be here for you when you want to take action. And we also want to strategically align with you to help you, navigate before you do take action. So you're in the best possible position to sell for the highest price and the best terms. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about whatever that thing is? And that thing could be, the one call we had, Sarah, they were, think of being more entrepreneurial. They kept talking about these other ventures and these other opportunities and how the new business partner had just come in and now it's freeing up the bandwidth for the visionary entrepreneur to go do these things he's been wanting to do for a long time, but frankly, he's been bogged down in the day-to-day, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about doing that next venture or starting that next business or, and then on the opposite side, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of your capital that's tied up in your property that you may need to sell is actually going to unlock what you need to do? Or do you have a bunch of money just sitting on the sideline where you don't need to do that? And what did they say, Sarah? Do you remember the response?
I don't remember them answering the scale question, but it's almost like when you present them the different options and opportunities, it's almost like they change on that scale of how open they are, how much they do want to sell. That's what I was picking up.
Exactly. Essentially, you're asking them, is a proposal warranted to do the next step? And I think I actually didn't do a scale from 1 to 10. I actually asked this question. I said, hey, Sarah's going to, and I were going to spend a lot of time putting a proposal together, getting sales comps, getting rent comps, getting some deferred sales trust exit plans versus a 1031 and putting this all together. And we're happy to do that proposal for you, but assuming we can agree on price and terms, and this is the next thing you want to write down. This is what's called the conditional close. Right? Basically, it's the, if I can, would you, right? Assuming we can agree on price and terms, and to your satisfaction, we can get a price that makes sense for you. And I can show you through this on the proposal, how to solve your 1, 2, 3, how to be more entrepreneurial. I also talked about our promise or our ability to typically increase cash flow by 50 to 60%. And do half of the work, right? So I said something along the lines of this, like, hey, I believe the deferred sales trust, and I believe things are also a good way to kind of transition it. Hey, I believe the deferred sales trust, for this example, could be a great fit for you because I believe it can give you 50 to 60% more cash flow. It can free up your capital to be entrepreneurial, and it can help you to harvest your property that you built so hard for so many years. Assuming we can agree on price and terms, and we come back with a proposal that shows you how this is going to happen on an executed plan, is there any reason why you wouldn't allow Sierra to exclusively list the property with you, for you? And at that point, that's when you kind of gauge like, oh, okay. And they said, well, we're not that serious about selling, is essentially what they came back with, at least right now, right? Which tells me what? Okay, it's not warranted my time, my energy to do a proposal right now, until they basically give me some kind of a commitment. Does that make sense? So this is moving from, I went on my first date, and is the second date even warranted? Is this person even serious about potentially doing business? And it's okay if they're not ready to do business today. Okay. So now I'm going to open it up for a couple questions. So we got Pierce, we got Brian, Vicente. Any thoughts or questions on anything I just said? That's okay.
I just think it makes a lot of sense to, judge them, basically assess them, I guess is a better word. How serious are they before we spend a bunch of time? Probability versus possibility brokerage, I think is it a possibility or is it a probability? So we don't waste our time, and because that's how you basically just spin your wheels and go out of business, is just wasting time with people who aren't serious.
100%, right? It's the same thing. Why, if you're just on the phone, you're not closing for meetings, you're practicing possibility brokerage, possibility that they might do business with me. And I feel really good that they talked to me and we had all this deep conversation about all these things. But guess what? The reality is you're still in the friend zone. Okay. So it's not till you get that meeting that you become to an opportunity to maybe get into the next zone, which is the business zone, right? However, you got to spend your time and your energy on what's probable. And the only way to do that is to ask those questions. On a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about going from A to B? B is where you want to be. A is where you're at. I also asked Sierra, if you remember in that conversation, I said, hey, what are you trying to do? Where do you want to be? What did he say when I said that?
I don't think he was really sure where he wanted to be. I don't think they'd really thought about that yet.
100%. And guess what? If he doesn't even know where he wants to be, what are the odds of you getting the listing for him to sell his $10 million asset? Probably now 0%, right? He wasn't even sure where he wanted to be. And that's okay. He didn't know. If he doesn't know, guess what? You can't take him to a place that he doesn't even know he wants to be at. So what did I encourage him to do? I said, hey, let's have a follow-up, but your homework is to clarify where you want to be. So when we come on this next conversation, you at least have a gauge of where you want to be. But if you don't know where you want to be, I can't help you to get where we don't know where we're going. Now I can give you some ideas, and I said, look, let me give you a couple deal stories, because then they finally said, hey, just give me some of the goods. They said, give me some of the goods. Well, what is this whole thing you're talking about? 1031 exchange versus deferred sales. I was like, well, what is this thing? And I say, look, let me give you a couple stories. Okay. And stories are so big. Here's why. Stories are going to help them relate to you, right? But more so relate to your clients. Because it's one thing to talk about features and benefits. It's a whole other thing to actually tell them a story of how you help to transform someone's life. And that could be, hey, I took someone from making $100,000 a year in NOI and I helped them to 1031 exchange into a larger property and a better location with less maintenance. And I increased their NOI by 50%. Right. And let me share that story with you of how we did that. And you start sharing that story. Now, all of a sudden, the possibility for them changes. Their story goes, well, if you help someone else do that, could you help me do that? And you also start talking about the pain points that those clients had. The clients had pain points with management. The clients had pain points with a loan that was coming due. The clients had pain points with their ROE, their return on equity was very low. It was like 2 or 3%. And so one of my stories, I helped a client who was a $2.5 million property in Placerville. And they had done a 1031 exchange out of a duplex in Manhattan Beach. And they had bought this property for $1.2 million. The value was about 2.5, but their NOI was about $120,000. And so part of what we looked at was to say, is it time to harvest? Because your ROE is about 3 to 4%. What if we could increase that by 50 or 60% with half the work and half the time? And for those clients, they said yes, and they're very happy. They did so, right? The timing was right for them and their increase of their capital. But also they had, twin daughters, and they wanted to travel more and spend more time with their family and do those things where the kids are still young, about 8 or 9 years old were the kids. And so this is some of the pain, some of the pleasure, some of the things that they were trying to do. And so they used the Deferred Sales Trust to unlock all of this. Now they can still go back into real estate if they want to. They can still be entrepreneurial, but they paid off. They didn't really have any debt on this property, but they're increasing their cash flow from $120,000 to $190,000. So this is where I ask a no-oriented question to not feel like it's salesy. So we typically want to go, do you see how that's so cool? And they would say yes. Instead of saying that, you could say something like this. Is it a ridiculous idea to think that, increasing your cash flow by 50 to 60% and doing half the work is a bad thing? And you're hoping that they actually say, no, that's not a bad idea, right? It opens up the possibility for them through this story that I just told them, right? And I might tell another story, or they might have a question on that, right? And that's the whole point. You want to move their state from, because most people, honestly, when you call them, if they already had a bigger problem or they already clarified their vision, they probably already called the agent, right? Or they probably already would have called you. But if you're cold calling them and you're trying to create opportunities, and Brent, you did a good job of this with going through the student housing shift out of Chico and basically defining the problem, analyzing the problem, educating on the problem. And that became the interest generator that actually got them to say, you know what, Brent, we weren't actually thinking about selling. But now when you brought this up, is it ridiculous to think this should concern you? What did they say?
They said, absolutely. I said, does any of this concern you at all? They said, yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
And that opened up the window for, well, let's talk. And we're still talking, and they're a little bit back and forth. And by the way, it's always going to be, yeah, we're open to selling. We're not really so, or even when you get the listing, it's like, oh, I'm ready to sell. And then a month later, maybe I shouldn't sell. And it's never going to be 100% sell, 0% not sell, right? It's always going to be this wave of emotion. So you want to coach them up on that, but you want to keep them focused on their long-term goal. Hey, when we first spoke, you said this was your vision for what you wanted to do. I'm part of my specialty is helping you to get from where you were at and where you want to be. But in between here, it's going to be bumpy. The waves are going to be back and forth, and you're going to have mixed emotions about selling, not selling. But what I can tell you when we get there is back to what you really want. You want it to make more money in half the time, right? You want it to diversify. You want it to harvest your wealth. You want to spend more time and energy doing the things you want it to be doing. And if we can show you how to do that, or we're showing you how to do that, or what part of here are you missing here? So, all right. So that's the training right there. But now we're going to go quickly into the promise that I gave to Brent, which is walking through proposals. Okay. So I'm going to actually show you a few deals. By the way, if you have questions or thoughts, put them in the chat right now, and I will try to get back around to those. For those who don't know, we're with eXp Commercial, and they have a system called Build Out. Let's see if it lets me in today. Sometimes it's a little bit finicky. This is a way to build proposals. And these proposals are ways to obviously try to go for listing. So while I am trying to get in, I'm actually going to not share my screen, and I'm going to have Brent, talk for a few minutes while I try to log in. So Brent, what most resonated with you today so far?
Oh, just the whole possibility versus probability brokerage, asking these questions on a scale from 1 to 10, or just trying to, get off the phone and get an in-person meeting. That's really key. And so that way you're just not wasting time.
And this week, Brent, what's the one thing that if you practice, you feel like it could move some deals forward? Like one thing that we talked about, or just anything. Like if I just practiced this week, I feel like I can move my business forward.
I have a super strong interest generator. I mean, massively strong. And with my state of student housing deal. So I think I just need to make some phone calls, talk to some people, and set up some appointments.
Good. And then what do you feel like once you get in person, Brent, your closing ratio is? Like, what's your ability to get the listing or at least move the deal forward? What do you feel like it is? Like, in other words, have you tracked the people that I've met? How many of them have I met that ended up doing business with me versus did not? Right? Think of it like that. Maybe looked at that tracking.
Off the top of my head, sort of. And it's not super high, to be honest with you. It's probably like 10%.
Okay, so other people you've got meetings with, if you had to track it.
Called and did presentations, Zooms. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's low. It's 10-15%.
So that's another thing you should be looking at, right? We should all be looking at of the people. Now, let me ask you this too. Did these people end up doing business with somebody else, or did they just not do business at all? Because it's one thing to be like, well, I'm not ready to sell yet. Another thing to be like, I actually sold it, ended up using somebody else. So what's that stat look like? Because there's a lot of people I've met, but they don't do business right away, right? But do you have a feel for that, Brent?
Yeah. A lot of them did business with someone else.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they have a trusted real estate agent who tends to do a lot of business in the area and make a lot of phone calls.
Okay.
Who's my arch nemesis that shall remain unnamed.
Good. Hopefully it drives you, right? So yeah. Okay. So yeah, those are the things you should be asking yourself, and then identifying how do I move out of back to the probability brokerage versus possibility. And I do believe as you practice these things, Brent, you will see a higher percentage increase in your conversions for proposals, and your conversions for listings, and your conversions for cold calls, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to stick to it. We've got to stick to it. Sierra, what of all we talked about, what sticks out most for you today?
I'm going to agree with Brent on the probability versus the possibility. I think like early on in my career, I'm still trying to find that line of how much time to spend on one person versus kind of tabling it for later. Because it is also a relational business and you want to put in just enough time to like maintain the relationship, but not overboard where you don't get anything done, you don't get any actual clients because you just spend all your time with people who aren't very high on that scale of probability. So finding that balance and practicing that is where I'm at.
Okay. So let me ask you about your follow-up system. Is it manual or is it automated, Sierra?
It's currently manual. I'm getting that built out to be automated.
Okay. And what does it look like to get it built out to be automated?
So I'm transitioning a little bit into like a monthly newsletter that's going to go out and it's going to address common topics and problems that I'm seeing in the market. Because right now it's me following up with phone calls with folks, which is like, you can only do one person at a time and it's taking a lot of time. So I'm trying to make it where I can kind of reach everybody at the same time and answer some common problems that I've been hearing. So I'm getting that built out.
Do you think you might be doing a video newsletter might be a good way to do that as well? Say, hey, here are the 10 most common things that people are facing. And then you jump on and you spend 30 minutes on right now, just like on a Zoom like this, creating the content, putting it on a YouTube channel, and then sending it out might be effective?
Yeah, I think video content would be great.
Because what I found is blogs take a lot of time and energy. And by the way, you can also transcribe your videos as well. But simply making a video one a day, the 10 top things that you should consider when refinancing a mobile home park. The 10 top things you consider when selling your mobile home park. The 10 top ways to exit, capital gains tax deferred or in an effective way. And you simply just make the content and you put it on your YouTube channel, and that becomes your follow-up as well as you build out automated follow-up emails about this, and it goes about maybe once a week, right? It could be a good goal. So that's a great idea. By the way, it's good news. We're inside a build-out. Okay, so we made it. Everybody, we made it. Okay. All right. I did not. I'm going to accept the cookies here. All right. So, let's go to, let's see. I guess I could give my proposals here. On market, let's see, under contract, closed. Where's the one I want to show you guys? I want to show you guys the deal that I built, that we sold. It was a 48 unit in Sacramento. And I don't even know if it's actually officially closed on here. Let's just see if it goes. It's expired. This was 48 units. And let's see if that pops up. All right, we're gonna stop screen sharing again until I get to it. Sorry, I've been in here a little while. I gotta get this thing hooked up. So yeah, you want to have automation. You want to have a drip that follows up with them. You can also do that through text. You can do that through email. But something where you don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, I haven't contacted this person in a long time, right? And so that could also be a part of your story. There's a book called Expert Secrets, where it teaches you how to share your story. And you can do that through an email follow-up system. I have that as well. Here it is. I found it. And that is something where if you haven't read that book, I actually encourage you to read that book and start to implement that. Here we go. Build out. Okay. All right, Brent, you ready? This is for you, and everyone else too.
Man, excited.
So this is Ashley Place Apartments. It's off market now because we closed it. Right. But essentially, this gives you the ability to build a proposal. On a proposal, you click on edit listing. By the way, build out is not necessarily completely intuitive. There's these little things that you have to click on to open up ways to open up the financials. But essentially, you're going to insert in all of the information, the address, the location description. You can't be too long because the proposals are going to build out in a way that it'll go off the screen, property information. So this should be pretty straightforward. If you don't know how to do this, you're in trouble. You just make sure you look up the property information, you get the APN, you get the lot size, all the basics. And then the first thing I'm going to do is always insert the rent roll, but I do that via the unit mix. I don't necessarily do like 48 units all at once. It kind of be consumed, but I do a unit mix breakdown, right? So how many studios, and this one has 8 studios. Let me see if I can zoom a little bit. This one has 8 one-bedrooms, 32 two-bedrooms, which was key, right? 2 bedrooms are huge. Also, look at the square footage, 1,000 square feet. So I already know I'm going to be highlighting these things, Okay. What's the average rent? And then what's the market rent? Now, this is big because the delta between these two is what I'm going to be selling on. I'm selling on the pro forma, but the legitimate pro forma based upon the marketplace. Okay. And be able to defend that with rent comps and what's in the area. So this has mostly 2 bedrooms that are 1,000 square feet that are not renovated. So the average room is about 1174. I know you can at least get to 1650, maybe even 17 or 1850, right? Depending on your level of renovation. Okay. And then we're going to put the kind of a general overview. eXp Commercials please offer a rare opportunity for investors looking to purchase a value-add property in the highly desirable community Arden Arcade submarket of Sacramento. By the way, if you're not quite sure, why don't you look up your competitors and see what they're putting for the sale description, right? And once you tweak that a little bit to make it fit how you want to say it, right? But these are this doesn't have to be completely fresh off of your mind like you're writing a new book. Go look for what everyone else is doing and make it your own, write in your own words. But a lot of it is there. You get a lot of research from your competitors, okay? And you don't have to feel like you have to recreate the wheel brand new every single time. It has to be fresh from you. Go and look at what people are putting and see what sounds really good to you, and then put it in your own words, okay? Here's some sales bullets. Excellent unit mix of 67% 2 bedrooms. Now this is big. Loss to lease value add opportunity around $438 on average per unit per month. That's huge, right? And this is what sold the deal for a 3.8 cap. Okay, right before everything really took off, and although we did sell it, we sold it after inflation started to hit, interest rates started to rise, but they were able to lock in about 4.5%. We also used 10X for this one. We did an auction date. We had over 138 groups register, and then over about 8 show up. Or about 12 showed up, about 8 participated. Ended up being like 3 horses at the very end to drive the price up to about $7.7 million. Okay. Where, by the way, most of the market was saying 6 million. 6 to 6.25, 6.5 maybe for all the local people. Even though a local guy ended up buying it, it ended up being priced it way higher than what most people thought. I had people call me saying, that's crazy that someone would pay that much money for that property. But we did that through competition, and that's part of the deal story that we share as well for people what we've been able to deliver. All right. So we actually kept the sales price out of this purposely because we wanted to create a bidding environment. And so this one's a little bit different than maybe some of you might do. We use a vacancy of 2%. Vacancy has been very tight. Typically, banks are underwriting at 3%. At least sometimes 5, but I use 2 and let the buyer decide what they think they're going to run it at. And then we're going to just start breaking down, real estate taxes. You're going to want to make sure based upon the new purchase price, right? Now this one we did current because we didn't want to give away the sales price. So this is kind of an anomaly. I've never done a deal where unpriced before this one. But generally speaking, you're going to get what the sales price is. You're going to times about 1.2%. Your admin is your admin. You're going to look in the income and expenses statement for that. Marketing and leasing, repairs and maintenance. Some of these are fixed prices. Some of these are in between. Landscaping is typically pretty fixed. Turnover cost is there. Wages and payroll can be very expensive. Utilities are utilities. Insurance is insurance. But some of these things you want to look at, and it's hard to explain except for once you look at 1,000 deals, you can see things that are out of whack. And when they're out of whack, you might ask the question, why is this so high? Oh, I got an answer for that. And then you're able to come back and maybe lower that inside of your broker opinion of value. But at the end of the day, the buyer is going to do the due diligence. You want to add a reserve. It's typically $250 per unit per month or per unit per year. And that's kind of like reserves, if you will. Okay. Again, this doesn't have a cap rate because they don't have a price on it. Then you're typically going to add a pro forma in here. And this pro forma, you can duplicate your current one, and then you can create a new one here. And that is nice about build out. You don't have to do it twice. You can just fill it out once, pro forma, and then make adjustments on there. I'm going to add all of my media. Right. I also created a video on this on YouTube. Highly encourage you to go. A, you don't have a YouTube channel to create one. B, we're going to look up Sacramento multifamily. Let's see what happens here. I want to see how I rank. So I have one investing in Sacramento multifamily. This is 2 months ago. Now this one was This was just general information, and I'm going through a few different deals that I've done. Created some B-roll. That's the state capital. This is a deal in Auburn we did. This is the deal we sold. So I'm creating a little video on this, which is still ranking top for Sacramento multifamily, which is pretty cool. Here's my other one. It's 214 views. Sacramento, this is the 48 units here. Okay, I'll put the link inside of the chat. You guys want to look at it later and give me another view. But this is a cool way to do what you can do. You hire a professional videographer, you pay him $500. He meets you at the site, right? And you're essentially touring the property like HGTV, right? And you're talking about the deal and all the specs and what you like and what you don't like. And you have someone come with you so you can be kind of interview style. I had Matt Stewart, who's part of I'm with eXp, and he was here with me, and you'll see he and I talking here. Look at this gentleman. He's just a really good gentleman here. Just experienced, and we're just talking through the deal. And it took about an hour to tour it. And we go inside of the units. We have some drone shots. It's not overly complicated, but check this out. So this is the property we sold right here. It's right across the street from this brand new Class A apartments that we're getting like $2,800 to $3,200 in rents, and we're like $1,100. So can we get to $1,800? Yeah, we can. Right, and then here's Arden Fair Mall. So this is a great way to build your brand. By the way, if you don't have listings, you can still do it with other properties. You can tour properties that are for sale. If you're going to go tour properties, you might as well tour deals in the area and do an analysis on those. Here's what I like about the deal. Here's what I don't like about the deal. Here's what I think it's worth, right? And you create this content so people can go back to it and see it. And I also heard a study that video, like the mind doesn't know the difference between talking in person versus video. In other words, like the know, like, and trust. You can get that here. We're getting it right now, but everyone who sees your content online, it helps to build that up, right? It helps to build that up. And so, Brent, any other questions like this? Brent is actually the digital marketing master. So, Brent, what do you want to add to that? You're on mute, so once you unmute yourself, I can hear you.
Very important. I'm the digital marketing master with my mute on. So basically, I mean, the money follows attention. The more attention you can get on yourself and the deal, basically, the more people are going to know, like, and trust you, and they can do that all over YouTube. It's just fantastic. So that's how I built a lot of my business, is basically through video ads, video distribution, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then also to have virtual assistants to do the editing, right? Don't become a full-time editor. Don't do any editing. I don't do any editing ever, right? I just create the content, give it to an editor, they edit it all. Before I go too far on another thing, Brent, on the proposal, is there anything specifically that, besides sharing what I just shared, on building a proposal that you want me to cover?
I honestly just had issues with build out. It was just the software was glitching out on me. You're able to access stuff that I wasn't able to access, unfortunately. So I was just, for everyone else listening, I was just tweaking on build out to try and do it, and I couldn't get it. So I just ended up making spreadsheets. As long as the data is good, though, it still worked. They were ugly spreadsheets, but the numbers, it was clear and it was concise. And I said I had rent comps and I had all their NOI and all this other stuff. So it still worked, but it didn't look as beautiful as something that build out was going to create.
Yeah. And remember too, that when you have a proposal, Brent, do you remember what we're using the proposal when we actually show up on the second listing appointment? Do you, and we covered this more next week, but do you remember what are you doing? Like, you showing up, walk me through, you walk in, you have the proposal, you're all excited. Walk me through what you're going to do with that proposal. You have it in hand.
Yeah. So the proposal is just an aid. Basically, you need to talk with them. You still need to just, share. You should be the expert and the main focus. And the aid is a secondary piece of information that supports basically what you're saying. So you could come to them and say, hey, look, your property is worth $4 million. And quickly, here's all the comps. See this one 3, see this one 5, 4.5, 5. See, so yours is going to be right in the middle. Boom, yours is 4. We're back here. You just pull it out when you need it. But you got to have this, because and even the exercise of doing this is going to give you the experience and the wisdom and the knowledge to bring to the table to say, I analyzed the 10 deals within 5 square miles, so I know everything that's sold in the last 6 months, and I can speak about it.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the study and the practice of doing the proposal that's going to prepare you for the meeting to deliver. Okay. And so when you're calling the rent comps, when you're calling the owners of those, when you're calling the brokers of the deals that have sold, when you're calling the lender, when you're doing all of that, you're establishing all of that information. Because if they know, your goal is to know more about their property and more about all of the comps and more about the area than that seller knows. If you don't know more about them, guess what? They're adding value to you. You're not adding value to them. So how do you do that? Proposal. Time, energy, effort. You should know everything as much as you possibly can about the property. Hey, I was touring the property yesterday and it looked like your AC unit is shot on unit rate. I don't mean to be very bad news, but that thing looks like it's tough. Hey, there's some dry rot over here, right? That could be something we might want to take a look at before you sell. Hey, the loan, I was reviewing the loan. Did you realize it has an assumption clause? That's pretty cool because right now, if you can assume, you can probably lower the interest rate for a buyer by about 2%. That's just pretty awesome. So I want to know these things, and I am the expert. Just like if you showed up to a doctor's office and you have the MRI, and they have the MRI there. I got the MRI, Brent, and they hand you the MRI, and they're like, hey, go ahead and look at that thing, right? What are you going to do? You're going to grab the thing and you're going to start going through it and you're going to be like, what's this? What's that? All of a sudden, it completely shifts the focus, and it also takes off of what you're trying to accomplish, which is, again, what are they trying to get to? This proposal that could be 30, 40, 50 pages can get lost really quickly. So you have it as an aid, like Brent said, and you use it just to show exactly what's happening based upon your research. But it should already be in your brain, and it should already be able to articulate it, and it's just a support for you, right? It's not something where you're walking through them step by step every single page, right? Like a book report. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So we're pretty much out of time. So if people, again, have questions or thoughts, you can always put them in the chat. Next week, we're going to be back. I think we're going to be diving into the actual second listing appointment some more. We're going to do a little bit more, I think, role play next week. But does anyone else have things that they might want to have covered and or questions about? Then you can also email me, or you can send me a message on Workplace. If you want to join us, you can also send me an email, Brett@capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, if you're listening to this. All brokers are welcome, residential and commercial. And we're happy to kind of go to that. Anything you want to cover, Brent, else, or Sierra, or Pierce, or Vicente, or Brian?
If you try to make an offering memorandum proposal, you could also have graphic designers, and there's other gig people who work on the internet, Fiverr.com or Upwork.com. You can find people to do that if you don't have build out. Build out's awesome, but there are other ways to make a beautiful presentation without build out.
Yep.
Yeah, Brett and Brent. Brent, I know you do a lot of your own videographing, but Brett, where do you find your folks to come out and film you through your property?
I usually do a Craigslist search, and I search for videographer, like in the city that it's in. Like we just did a Texas event. We did one in Cabo. We actually happened to know somebody who spoke Spanish, so he was able to talk to the Uber driver. It was like, who do you know this video? The Uber driver knew the person, and he came and it was great. And so it's usually like $500 to $600 for about 4 or 5 hours of work. And that's it. It's never hurts to have it. Yeah, I mean, you should always have it. If you ever have a live event, no matter how many people are there, you're just completely wasting energy and time if you're not recording it. It's just so much opportunity. You're touring properties. You should be filming yourself, filming the properties, filming the deals, right? So so Craigslist and just talk to people. Those are the two main ways.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, everybody. Hey, thank you for attending another commercial real estate tactical broker training. My name is Brett Swarts. If you want to learn more about me, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. I'm also part of eXp Commercial, and we're building on eXpmastery.com, which is essentially we're trying to bring the best elite professionals in residential, commercial, business brokerage, so we can help more clients. Exit well, have creative ideas. If you're interested in joining eXp Mastery, you can check us out. Sierra, if you want to find you, where can they find you?
You can find me Sarah Sell on Instagram. I'll respond, or Park Place Property Advisors.
Cool. Brent, if you want to find you, where can they find you?
Brent at BrentSellsChico.com.
Pierce, we want to find you. We can find you.
You can go to kingdomluxuryrealty.com.
How about Brian Brady and Vicente? If you want to find you, they can find you. You guys in touch, which is cool, but they might want to find you. And you guys are on mute, so I can't hear you.
You can find me on LinkedIn, Brian Brady, under Brian Brady Commercial Mortgage Broker.
Awesome. Vicente, how about you? I think he's on mute still. It's okay. Vicente. Next time. Hey, everybody, thanks so much. Have a great week. Okay, talk to you soon.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Brett.
Bye, guys. Go.